Hi everyone, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and I have a couple stamped and stenciled on craft Christmas cards to share with you. Now this is a brand new stencil and a stamp from the November release at A Colorful Life Designs. The stencil is called Flake Meltdown and the stamp is called Seasoned Tweetings. Now these are part of the November release at A Colorful Life Designs, and here are a couple photos of the finished cards to show you the direction that I'm headed. So I was able to use both some stamping and stenciling on this gorgeous craft cardstock to make a couple beautiful holiday cards for my stash. So you can see here, initially I'm using my magnet to hold this down, but I decide to actually mask off this other side or the bottom part of the card when I have it turned to the side, and I'm using some 2-inch post-it tape. Now basically I'm not really getting or not intending to get close to the masking tape, so it doesn't really play too much of a role here. I just wanted to lay some subtle residual ink down over the stenciling portion. I just wanted kind of a subtle look that faded off onto just the craft color. And then it ended up working perfectly where I could nestle in some of these stamps from this adorable new stamp set right into the space. So I don't really have a plan. I'm just kind of winging it, figuring out what direction I want to go. But I did get out that chipped sapphire Distress Oxide to start because I thought that might be a good match for the ink that was left on my blending brush. And here I'm going to nestle in this adorable little bird with a Santa hat on into this space, and then I realize I can also use the Seasons Tweetings, which is such a cute little pun, in the space right underneath it. So I'm just conditioning the stamp with my finger because I haven't used it before. This is how you get the manufacturer's goo off of a new stamp so that you get a better impression. And I'm going to stamp this a couple times in my Mini Misty with this Distress Oxide ink. And because Distress Oxide is actually a partial pigment, it's a hybrid ink, it will actually sit up really nice on top of that craft color, and it won't really sink in too much to be visible into the cardstock itself. So just stamp it a few times, get it nice and dark, and then I will move on to the next step here. Now I decided to do ink blending again on another card base. I just used one piece of that craft cardstock. It's actually Hero Hues. It's the sand color. It's such a beautiful cardstock. I think it's 100 pounds. So it's a really nice weight for card bases, but I just love working on it. It's so smooth. I love using them. I really want to try out some other Hero Hues cardstocks because if they're as nice as this, then they're going to be awesome to have in my stash. So this one I decided I want to use this really pretty sentiment that came in it. And I'm also, again, able to really nestle this into the shape of the design. So it's almost as if they were made for each other. Now, I did end up adding a little bit of teal to the ink blending on this one, and so I decided to use Uncharted Mariner for the stamping here because I felt like it matched a little bit better to my ink blending. And again, I condition the stamp. I stamp it a couple times down, press it with my press tool to get a nice even impression, and then basically that's going to create the sentiment for this second card. And again, I'm working right on a card base, so they're nice and flat, easy to ship, won't have any issues with that. Now, I decided I wanted to color in some elements of this. I didn't really want to get out my Copics because those would have soaked through and shown through the cardstock on the inside of the card, and I didn't want that, but I didn't want to just leave it an outline either, and I also didn't want to do a full coloring. So I have my Arteza colored pencils here. I'm just pulling out a few colors, and I'm basically just going to kind of give the illusion of coloring it in. So it's not going to be a huge time commitment, but it's going to kind of fit the bill and help me figure out what I want to do. Now I'm just testing the colors here because I haven't used them in a while. I know I want a couple browns and the gray and the red. So first of all, I realized this cute little budgie is kind of floating. Now had I thought of it, maybe I could have lined it up with the actual sentiment, so the little birdie would have been sitting on the actual sentiment. But since I didn't do that, I didn't want her just floating in midair, so I decided to just kind of draw in a whimsical, not very great, admittedly, little branch for the bird to sit on. So that's why I grabbed those two brown colors. And then I'm using the bright red color just to kind of color in the Santa hat on the bird. And I'm going in on both the sides and then leaving it kind of a highlight in the center. Now when you're coloring, this is a way to really give something a round appearance, is to give it a nice highlight in the center like that. It'll give it the illusion of being more round. I'm coming in a little bit with the gray, Instead of using white, I'm just putting a little bit of gray where the shadow might be on the white part of the hat and also on the bell. And then I decided to add just a little bit of the gray into the bird as well. Now this is a very cool looking gray to me, so it really kind of tied in. It had a little bit of a similar hue to the subtle ink blending that I did, so I felt like it kind of tied in and didn't clash too much. I think I did end up coming in as well, a little bit of brown on the beak, so nothing too earth-shattering there. But it gave it the illusion of, being somewhat colored in and gave it a little bit more of a polished look. So that worked out well. Now, I decided to use my mint tape to mask off the main portion of this and also this post-it tape because I want to do some white splatter. I wanted to take it to the next level. So I have this proof white stuff here. I'm just going to kind of put a smear of it on my acrylic block here, and I'll add some water. This is my lazy trick here. I had a water brush there with some water in it, so I'm just using that to kind of thin this out. It was still probably too thick. I didn't get the best splatter. You'll see here I literally splattered everything but my cards. It was like magic. There were no dots on the card, just everywhere around it. So not entirely sure how I managed that, but had to do it a couple times to actually get some spatter on the cards and not just, all over my desk. So it's a bit of a struggle, but made it work, got through, thinned it out enough, and yeah, made a huge mess in the process, but it worked out okay. I just didn't want the splatter to overtake my stamping or the little birds, so that's why I kind of masked it off. But it ended up okay. I got some nice, really thin splatters, and I'm just going to come in to finish it off with a little bit of blingage. These are white iridescent sequins. I'm going to come in with odd numbers, just kind of a smattering of sizes around the composition, just to give it a little something extra, because the card is pretty simple, even though there's some different elements in terms of the stamping and stenciling and coloring and things like that. It's still overall a very simple design. So nice and flat, easy to ship. The only dimension technically are these little sequins, which really don't do much, so should be plenty easy to ship. So these are just two of the many amazing products in this release. You definitely want to check it out. If you do use my coupon AmyFan10, and you'll save 10% on your complete order if you shop. There is also a Master Creator Bundle where you can get the entire release plus the stamp for 20% off. So I will link that below. If you follow that link, it really does help me out. I appreciate it. But here's the finished cards. I'm really pleased with how they turned out. Wasn't entirely sure, as usual, the direction I was going when I started, but I'm pleased, and I have a couple more cards for my stash. So thanks so much for spending time with me today. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.